Perhaps, but there is one man whose prophetic and predictive talents continue to baffle even the most hard-nosed skeptics. With his 8th grade education, he uncovered secrets of our past that no historians could have known. He predicted wars, diagnosed and cured illnesses, and saw cataclysmic changes to our planet that only scientists could have described. And he did it all in his sleep. A man named Edgar Cayce had the amazing ability to put himself in a trance and provide individuals with detailed information about virtually anything they asked about the present, the past, or the future.
Edgar Cayce is probably the most profoundly important clairvoyant of all time.
He was clearly the most gifted psychic of the 20th century.
He predicted the Second World War, the deaths of presidents, the future of medicine, and diagnosed illnesses in his sleep. His psychic readings, 14,306 of them, are all archived and cataloged at the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, Virginia. They remain the most massive collection of psychic material collected from a single source.
Edgar Cayce didn't give 10, 20, 500 readings in his career. He gave 14,000. Think of a Las Vegas stage performer having to come up with a different routine twice a day, every day for 45 years. It's just not possible.
Edgar Cayce gave readings about many, many different subjects. Nostradamus wasn't quite as eclectic.
But like Nostradamus, Cayce was very sought after in his lifetime, and like his French counterpart, he also remained humble about his ability.
Both of them were men who were deeply committed to a life of compassion and service to others. Both were very interested in health and healing. Nostradamus was a physician. Edgar Cayce was an intuitive diagnostic physician of sorts.
Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus both started as healers, but later became more famous as prophets.
Cayce was about to discover new, amazing abilities, and his spine-chilling visions were about to turn him into the greatest prophet of the 20th century.
Spectacular earth-change predictions. Something that would be catastrophic, probably even beyond what we could imagine.
Nostradamus to the Mayas. Prophets and prophetic traditions the world over warn of cataclysmic earth changes that will soon be upon us.
The ancient Mayans had a sense that there would come a time, about in these times in which we're living now, that would include tremendous destruction. They speak about the day of the withered fruit and the great tempest, things that sound rather scary.
The Hopi speak of trees dying and dramatic changes in the weather that will bring in the great day of purification. Nostradamus speaks of the dead rising from their grave. And Prophet Mother Shipton warns,
"Storms shall rage and oceans roar, old worlds shall die and new be born."
As for Cayce's predictions for the new millennium, they are as dire as all the other prophets before him.
Edgar Cayce made some extraordinary and spectacular earth-change predictions. Probably the biggest one was that the rotational axis of the Earth would change. And that's something that would be catastrophic, probably even beyond what we could imagine if that took place literally.
If the tilt axis of the Earth shifted slightly, the entire mass of the Earth would have to reconfigure itself. It would shift ocean basins, it would shift where valleys are, where mountains are.
Some of Cayce's visions of that future were truly terrifying.
He speaks of Japan going into the ocean, inundations for southeastern United States, perhaps in a very slow way, but a permanent kind of inundation.
Cayce also warned the East Coast would not be spared.
Portions of the now east coast of New York, or New York City itself, will in the main disappear. This will be another generation, though. Here, while the southern portions of Carolina, Georgia, these will disappear. This will be much sooner.
He also suggests that Europe would change either geologically or climatologically in the twinkling of an eye.
Cayce actually foresaw these as part of the shifting of the poles. He stated that the Great Lakes would flow down through the Mississippi Valley system and from there flow right into the Gulf.
Amazingly, Cayce, who knew nothing about plate tectonics, said signs within the Earth would warn us of this coming pole shift.
The most dramatic predictions that Edgar Cayce made is that there would be the onset of major Earth changes that would escalate in activity from 1958 on through 1998. From that period on, these trends, they would escalate again, then we would know that the pole shift was coming.
There will be the upheavals in the Arctic and in the Antarctic that will make for the eruption of volcanoes in the torrid areas, and this will begin in those periods in 58 to 98.
Volcanic activity events are increasing. The torrid zone activity has increased along with general world increase by something like 500% in the last 50 years.
Cayce also predicted a surge in violent storms and earthquakes in this period. In the last 10 years, hurricane activity in the Atlantic has been at its highest, and an increasing number of earthquakes are being detected around the globe. And in 1999, German researchers measured more than 200 earthquakes in a period of 7 months above the Arctic Circle. Are Cayce, Shipton, Nostradamus, and the Maya and Hopis before them reading from the same book of prophecy?
People from different cultures seem to have been able to tune into a kind of universal mind. That same level that Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce seem to have been able to tune into also.
Is the world as we know it about to end?
Some disaster with our skies, with our crops, with our rising oceans, they all can basically agree on that. They may emphasize one aspect more than others, but they all share the fact that we are entering a period of evolutionary crisis.
So many different prophetic traditions have talked about times of destruction, times of dire cataclysm, death, devastation. More than anything, those predictions are a wake-up call for all of us, as individuals, as a nation, as a world, to look at our relationship to the earth, to nature, and to our relationship with each other.
As dire as his Earth prophecies appear, Cayce believed in living in the present. He also believed, like Nostradamus and other prophets before him, that we have a hand in how the future will unfold. Still, in 1939, just as Cayce had predicted, the Second World War broke out. And in 1941, as America became entangled in the conflict, more and more people wrote or came to him asking about the fate of loved ones who were fighting abroad.
Edgar, in his own readings, was reminded to give not more than 2 a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, because each psychic reading was emotionally draining to a system. Well, Edgar Cayce could not say no to people, and that ultimately brought his downfall, because by the summer of 1944, he was giving 7 and 8 readings a day.
In September of 1944, fatigued and depleted, Edgar Cayce suffered a stroke. He died on January 3, 1945 in Virginia Beach. He's buried in his hometown of Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Outside the cemetery, a bronze plaque stands as a testament to his work. But to many, he was more than just a great prophet.
Relegating Edgar Cayce to the place of someone who simply predicted the future makes Edgar Cayce an event. And in my opinion, the material is so helpful, so valuable, that it's much more a source of information that helps people in the here and now.
He isn't any one thing. That is, you can't stick him in a box and label it mystic. You can't stick him in a box and label him psychic. You can't stick him in a box and label him prophet. At the end of the day, Edgar Cayce's readings are not about whether he was right or wrong about Egyptian or Atlantean history, or whether there even was that kind of history. I think at the end of the day, what matters is that he helps us to better understand who we are and why we're here.
Today, the Cayce materials continue to provide insights into most every subject under the sun. Whatever he did and however he did it, Cayce, like all the great seers before him, left behind a vision of what our future could be. Whether that future unfolds remains to be seen.